Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me start my keynote address by apologizing for not being present in this occasion. I sincerely wanted to be a part of this maiden edition of the African Women Conference. Unfortunately, due to some unforeseen events, it made it difficult for me to be here in person. And that's why I decided to record my speech so that you can hear what I have to say and what I hope we will all agree to and work together. My sincere apologies, and I have two of my directors in the conference as delegates representing me in this occasion. Please, I declare it open with my recorded speech. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the AWC team, members of the press, and all persons of interest here today, good morning, and I salute you all. It is with great delight and gracious spirit I stand before you all to be part of such an important conversation themed Role of Women in Sustainable Development. The theme of the conference, Repositioning Africa, Role of Women in Sustainable Development, was without doubt well thought out because the development of any nation, to a large extent, it's determined by the roles played by women in the planning and implementation process. The role of women can never be overemphasized, as we constantly yearn to see the growth in indices of the female gender empowerment. Interestingly, I am thankful and assume it a privilege to be born and bred in what is typically known as a typical African home or African family beyond just a Nigerian woman. Our heritage and identities define us, and as we embrace it wholly and delightfully, yet we must not let the euphoria of it entrap in us dogmas and prejudices. 3 decades ago, my great-grandparents and grandparents, as merchants, crisscrossed several African countries where they began the journey of procreating the generations born and unborn. Countries like Sierra Leone, Mali, Senegal, Ghana, Gambia, Egypt, and Ivory Coast. This advantage, I must confess, prepared me for such conversations in a holistic manner, irrespective of our ethnic and socio-cultural differences, and remains a determining factor as to why I believe domestic appropriate approach related to women issues should be a yardstick by which we all can try to surmount and tackle challenges of women across Africa. Since the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, which was adopted at the United Nations 4th World Conference on Women in 1995, relevant stakeholders, especially within the cycle of government all over the world, have taken concrete measures in addressing critical issues of gender concerns. As a positive outcome of the conference, gender mainstreaming has been globally accepted as a development strategy for reducing poverty levels among women, improving health and living standards, and also enhancing efficiency of public investments. The integral role women play in sustainable development is immense, be it in peace building, security, entrepreneurship, agriculture, education, science, religion, norms and values, family, politics, technology, and more across Africa, even before the proclamation of the 35% affirmative action in some countries and nation-state. May I humbly say, in terms of productivity and contribution to societal growth, women had surpassed that percentage, but for inclusiveness in official portfolios, budgets, access to funds, and grants of various kinds. The challenges. In the course of my research, I stumbled on a very interesting analysis in the World Watch Organization, a paper presentation delivered by Robert Engelman and Jill Schilfeld in 2012. I began to ponder on how much has changed since then to the now. It was depressing to realize that the challenges are still daunting and not a significant change per se. I am optimistic we shall get there though. My dear sisters and colleagues in this meeting of like minds, permit me to take these issues one at a time. Women, peace, and security. The issue of women, peace, and security has a long-standing history, as with the UN Council Resolution 1325. Women as active agents in deepening peaceful coexistence in any society should not be understated but overemphasized. Acknowledging the role of women in safeguarding societal values should be the business of any responsive government in governance. When a woman or women are empowered, it automatically empowers a community, state, or nation. And empowering a nation synonymously means empowering the youths, as it contributes greatly to eliminating social vices and ultimately prevents conflict. This remains a global literature that has been proven. Acknowledging the role of women by empowerment, it has numerous multiplier effects as it eradicates poverty and, like I said earlier, societal and social vices. Some of us have had close dealings with victims of rape, amongst persons with disabilities, victims of conflict, insurgencies, and displacements. Hence, a reason why I shall be emphasizing on the vital role women play in peace building and nation building. Reproductive health. It is general knowledge that reproductive health dominates the discourse in the SDG. However, female genital mutilation, VVF, cervical cancers, and malnutrition is largely understated, and this poses a big threat to the survival prowess or power of women, especially in sub-Saharan Africa. I believe as the world population passes 7 billion people, reducing maternal mortality and achieving universal access in practical terms for reproductive health and the aforementioned diseases is critical to sustainability. Sexual and reproductive rights are critical in their own right. Shortfalls in this multiply other forms of discrimination, depriving women of education and decent work as one example. Yet only 52% of women married or in a union freely make their own decisions about sexual relations, contraceptive use, and healthcare. We all know the use of contraceptive remains a controversial one globally, especially in our nation states, as a result of the very many doctrines of religion, and for some others, cultural norms, dogmas, and prejudice. As with the saying, health is wealth. Only when that improves shall wealth creation and sustainability can truly be achieved as a milestone. Women in agriculture. Women produce 50% of agricultural output globally and represent nearly 80% of the agricultural labor force in parts of Africa. If women had the same access as men to agricultural resources, production will increase by 20 to 30% and has the potential to reduce the number of hungry people in the world by 12 to 17%, according to the research by the UN Food and Agriculture Organization. The impacts of climate change and environmental degradation are neither gender nor age neutral. Women and children are frequently among those most significantly affected by fluctuating commodity prices and natural disasters such as drought and famine. Economic empowerment. Education and economic empowerment of women have significant potential to reduce poverty. The benefits of education passed to the next generation by mothers who have had an education are immense, as they are more likely to send their own children to school as compared to mothers with no education. These mothers need incentives to aid the education of their children. Basic needs like books, biros, uniforms, sanitary towels, school bags, and medication has had a drastic effect on low school enrollment and high number of dropouts. Early marriage and forced marriages has stalled the dreams of millions of women across the globe, especially in African countries. Provision of continuous education as an alternative is imperative for such class of persons. Nevertheless, development partners tend to concentrate more on girl-child education as against in tow. This implies to the previous girl child, who are grown adults now, largely divorced and desiring to pursue their education. Rural communities can have such learning facilities for such victims. Trainings and skill acquisition, startup capital, and monitoring as a catalyst for progress. When women have more access to resources and support, they are most likely to be productive. We have to overemphasize on this. And according to the International Planned Parenthood Federation, on average, women reinvest up to 90% of their incomes back into their own households, compared to 30 to 40% by men. Currently, women's unpaid labor is estimated to contribute up to 50% of GDP in some countries. Persons living with disabilities. Persons and children with special needs are human beings, just like you and I. All they need is love.